Wake up. There is someone in the castle.
What? Who?
No invitation, no ID. Didn't even knock, just walked in. And doc, they have been in the finance wing. They have been in the records room. They have seen things I haven't even seen. And I live here.
Frankie, that's not an intruder. That's your guest user.
My what?
Every public-facing experience cloud site has one. It's the profile that represents anyone who visits your site without logging in. And depending on how it's configured, it can see a lot more than anyone on the internet should.
So I have had an uninvited guest wandering my house this whole time. And I just never checked what they had access to.
Pretty much everyone hasn't. Let's fix that.
Okay, slow down. I have a guest I never invited. Explain that like I'm a confused monster. Because I am one.
At any time you run a public experience cloud site, a help center, a partner portal, a customer community, anything someone can reach without logging in, Salesforce assigns those anonymous visitors a guest user profile behind the scene. It's not optional and it's not a bug. It's how public sites work. The problem is this profile is specific to each individual site. So if you run 5 sites, you actually have 5 separate guest profiles to manage. And admins routinely lose track of what each one can actually touch.
So it's not one uninvited guest. It's 5 wandering 5 different wings of my castle simultaneously. Is this actually a real documented problem? Or am I just being paranoid? Because I am, again, a monster made of anxiety and legacy code.
It's very real, and Salesforce has been direct about it. Salesforce Security has publicly tracked the threat actor campaign specifically targeting orgs with overly permissive Experience Cloud guest user configurations. Attackers going after misconfigured settings to pull more data than the organization ever intended to expose. Salesforce has been clear that this isn't a flaw in the platform itself. It's a customer configuration problem, which is honestly the less comforting version of this sentence, because it means the fix is sitting in setup waiting for us.
So, nobody broke into the castle. I just left the uninvited guest a map, a flashlight, and a snack. Alright, so what can a guest user actually get in their hands on? Worst case.
Salesforce has tightened the guardrail a lot here, and it's worth knowing what's a hard rule versus what's still on you to configure. By platform policy now, guest user external or quiet defaults are always set to private. Guest users can never be granted more than read access to a record. They cannot be added to public groups or queues, and they can't get access through manual sharing. The only way a guest user can see a record at all is through a guest user sharing rule, which is a special criteria-based sharing rule built just for this purpose. And even that maxes out at read. Guest users also cannot hold update or delete permissions on objects. So the platform closes off a lot of worst case doors automatically. What's still entirely on admin is the read side, field level security, which objects the guest profile has access to at all, and whether API access on self-registrations are switched on when they don't need to be.
So the castle door has a real lock now. I just apparently also left a window open, unlocked, with a sign that says data inside. Okay, I am convinced. Where do I actually start uninviting this guest from? Rooms they shouldn't be in.
Start with an actual audit, not a guess. Go into each site's guest user profile individually. Remember, one per site, and review exactly which objects and fields it can access. Then strip out anything that isn't genuinely required for the site to function. Turn off API access for guest users unless there is a specific current reason it's needed. If self registration isn't something our site actually uses, disable it and check that any records guest user create like a case submitted through a support form gets automatically reassigned to an authenticated default owner instead of sitting there tagged to an anonymous profile forever. None of this is exotic. It's just the kind of checklist that's easy to do once and then never look at it again.
So it's not kick the guest out entirely. It's hand them a map that only shows the lobby and the gift shop. Last question. Once I have logged this down, is it a one and done fix or does the uninvited guest situation comes back?
It comes back because the sites evolve. New fields get added to object, new components get dropped onto the page. Someone extends the site 6 months from now and doesn't think to recheck the guest profile against the changes. Treat guest user access review as a recurring part of your security routine, the same kind of habit as running health check, not one-time cleanup after a scar. Given that Salesforce itself has flagged actively threat activity in this exact era, we configured it correctly once, isn't a sentence that ages well.
Right, because apparently uninvited guests don't knock twice, they just find a new door. Frankie's lab notes, mildly rattled about who has been in finance wing. 1. Every public experience cloud site has its own guest user profile, representing anyone browsing without logging in. And if you run multiple sites, that's multiple profiles on track. 2. This is a documented, active target. Salesforce has publicly tracked threat activity aimed specifically at overly permissive guest configurations, and it's explicitly a config issue, not a platform flaw. 3. The platform enforces real limits by default. Guest or by defaults are always private. Guest user can never exceed read access, and access only comes through guest sharing rules. But field level security, objects access, API access, and self-registration are still on you to lock down. 4. Audit every site's guest profile individually. Stripe out what isn't needed and reassign guest created records to an authenticated owner. And 5. This isn't a one-time fix. Recheck it as your site changes on a recurring basis. This has been Frankie's Lab Notes. I'm changing the logs, all of them.
That's episode 7 and the start of Lock and Key. Next time, Frankie drags himself into his annual physical, except it's not a stethoscope, it's a Salesforce security health check. See you there.